Good evening, I'm Jeff Salkin. We begin this week with a dreaded five-letter word on the minds of many this tax filing season. The word is audit. Joining us now is Kurt Stern, tax partner with Cohn Resnick. Thanks for being with us.
Oh, my pleasure, Jeff. Thank you very much.
That was a pretty scary word there. Is it as scary as it sounds?
Well, the first thing I say is don't fear the audit. It's really nothing more than just an inspection of the information that you put on the return that you sent in. Many people get emotional when they hear that, but really just read the notice, find out what it is that they want from you, and provide it to them. It could be something very quick, fast, and painless.
Are there different types of audits, different levels of intrusiveness, say?
Yes. Typically what we see are two different types of audits. We have the matching documentation notification, and usually you see that mostly with individuals. The IRS will ask, we haven't seen this on your return, but somebody else reported it was there. You either provide them the information that they're asking, or you say, oops, I forgot, please adjust my return. And they simply just send you a bill, nothing more innocuous than a utility bill that you would get.
Will they catch it if it's in your favor?
Absolutely. Sometimes they do, especially with interest expense, I've seen. But more importantly, when you go through it, what you'll find out is maybe there were some things that you didn't put on that didn't get pulled up on these matching. So it gives you another chance to go back at your return.
Okay, so that's relatively minor stuff. If we're going to use a dentist office analogy, that's like a cleaning and polishing. But then there's the root canal version, right?
Yeah. Well, even the root canal isn't as bad as what it has been in years past. Basically, what they'll do is send you a notice, and in that notice, they're going to want to look at certain things. The first thing to do when you get one of those notices is you should call the IRS and ask them, what is it that you're looking for? Typically, they're associated with businesses. And what we find is they'll send out a laundry list of items they want to take a look at, but before they go ahead and understand what your business is about. So once you go ahead, describe what your business, how large it is, how many transactions it has, often what they'll do is they'll say, well, let me just look at these 5 items or these 10 items. So instead of something that may have taken you what appeared a month or 2 months to provide information from them, really something very simple. So the important thing is to go ahead and ask and talk to the IRS agent that's sending you the notice, get them engaged.
So it sounds like maybe there's a difference between the public perception of this process and the intentions and characteristics of folks working for the IRS and what your experience has been over the years. Well,
there's been a big evolution of the way the government has gone ahead and audited tax returns. Just about every tax return that we file nowadays is audited at some level through the IRS's use of technology and through the requirements of other vendors sending in information, such as you have to send in W-2s to employees, the employer does, so the employee's information is already in the IRS files. So they do all this matching beforehand. So in the old days, they didn't have that matching years prior. So they'd come in and they'd want to look at everything, all of your checkbooks, all of your activities. Now it's more of a pointed reason for them to come in and ask. They want to look at something specific. Interest, they want to look at meals and entertainment expense, they want to look at automobile expense to make sure you're in compliance with the rules. So yes, you're right. It's not like it was in years past.
Well, let's talk about individuals for a second and then businesses. From an individual standpoint, what are the mistakes people make that might trigger a more serious form of an audit?
Well, believe it or not, some people are still preparing tax returns by hand, even though we have all this software.
You know, they still have the forms at the post office like the old days.
So I heard. But one of the biggest reasons to be audited are math errors or forms that aren't in the tax return. And so if you're using one of these tax software programs that they have available now, typically they're very good at making sure that all the math is done and all the forms that are necessary to make a complete return are there. And so that eliminates a lot of issues.
So as a professional, how do you look at TurboTax and the H&R Block version, the software? Is it any good? I mean, you must have better stuff, but in terms of what people who want to do their own might use, that beats the pencil and paper.
If you understand the preparation of a tax return.
Nobody understands the preparation.
You're absolutely right. If you're willing to go through the software does a great job. I mean, they catch 99% of everything that you're going to necessary to file a tax return. You hear once in a while where a software makes a mistake or isn't covered, but that's really in the rare occasion. Tax preparers nowadays are really, my role is to help with problems. You have something that's not covered by a tax software, you get an IRS notice and you're not really sure why you're getting the notice. We're problem solvers, and we play more of that role today than what we have in the past.
All right, let's look at the business perspective on this. What do corporations do, partnerships, whatever form of business, that'll trigger an issue? Well,
businesses are somewhat different and more complex than individual returns. So with a business, what the IRS has done is over the years, they identified different industries that they want to go ahead and take a look at based upon historic reviews of the returns. So, for instance, they'll look at restaurants because they want to look at tips and whether tips are being properly reported by the servers. They'll look at international transactions. So if you report international transactions, they'll take a look at that. That's been in the news quite a bit the last couple of years. Also, art galleries, believe it or not. Apparently, there's a lot of cash sales in art galleries, and they want to make sure that the art gallery is properly reporting the income that these cash sales might generate.
And the IRS will have a focus on a particular industry or group of industries at any given time, and they'll tell you what industries they're looking at, right?
Yeah, often they go ahead and do. Now, these industry incentives will probably last for 2 or 3 years, but they'll give you a heads up. At our firm, we do quite a large group of returns in different industries. So in-house, we actually keep track of which industries are being audited to give us a heads up as to what to expect. So when we're preparing returns, if we know it's an industry that has been heavily looked at in the prior year's audits, we can give our clients a heads up.
Is the IRS under pressure to be a little bit tighter with enforcement because the country needs revenue, and clearly there's a gap between what the tax code says ought to be coming in and what's actually coming in?
Well, there is quite a big tax gap, and a lot of that is in unreported income. So that's what they do, is they design programs to try to identify where unreported income might be. Hence why they look a lot at international transactions. So are there unreported income offshores not in this country? So the transparency of reporting has been getting better and better, so they do have more tools, but that's typically what they're looking for.
Are certain size returns more likely to get audited? So in the individual space, the high-income individual versus lower middle-income business side, is it a big company versus a small company?
Absolutely. When you have a large company that has assets over $100 million, probably as much as 20 to 25% of those companies are reviewed and audited. If your income is $200,000 or less, you're in about that 1%. From $200,000 to $500,000, it might jump up to 2%. So yes, the higher income level returns, both business and individuals, are audited at a higher rate. State returns, for instance, almost all large estate returns are audited.
You know, we also read more and more about identity theft and problems that creates in the tax system with perhaps fraudulent filing of returns to get refunds. Do you see much of that?
We read a lot about it. Apparently, even organized crime has gotten involved in it. Last year, the statistics were about 3 million returns, refund returns, were seized by the IRS as fraudulent, which represented over $20 billion worth of refund amounts. So the numbers are huge. And of course, the government only knows what they catch, not what they don't catch. So they're spending more and more time and money and resources to follow that problem. But it is a big problem.
Is that an argument for, I was going to ask if that's an argument for filing on time as opposed to getting an extension. I mean, do you want to, if somebody is going to file with your Social Security number, you want to get there first? Is that?
Well, yes. If you go ahead and file before somebody else can, absolutely. But most importantly, if you identify right away that somebody else is using your Social Security number, you should identify and contact the IRS immediately on that, because then there's a good chance that they're using it for tax return filings. And the big thing there is to catch it early, quick.
Right. And to sum up on the audit front, the big mistake people make is not responding promptly.
Absolutely. Many times people just go ahead, put their head in the sand, and say, you know, we'll wait until they come back again. And that's the worst thing to do. They're not going to forget. It's not going to fall off the plate. They have too much technology to keep it going. And they just have a job to do. So don't be afraid when you get the notice. Find out what it is that they want. Provide them the information. If there's a difference or a problem, contact a tax accountant or a tax lawyer to help you with it.
Very good. Kurt Stern is with Cohn Resnick. Thanks for making time for us.
Absolutely.
We appreciate it.